There is a law, immutable and indifferent to your opinion of it, that governs every exchange between human beings, the law that power gravitates to the mind most prepared to receive it. Whether you are aware of it or not, every conversation, every negotiation, every opportunity you will encounter in your lifetime is a test of your inner mastery. And the one truth that most men never discover is this: it is not the cleverest, nor the loudest, nor the most aggressive who commands the field. It is the one whose inner world is ruled by discipline, calm, and deliberate intention. Before you can get what you want from anyone, you must first master yourself so completely that no external force, not flattery, not insult, not urgency, not fear, can pull you from the throne of your own mind. Emotional detachment, my friend, is not coldness, nor is it indifference. It is supreme control. It is the condition of mind in which you respond only to the dictates of your purpose, never to the accidents of your surroundings. When you are emotionally attached to the approval of others, you give them a lever by which they may move you at their will. They need only threaten to withhold that approval, and you will betray your principles, abandon your plans, and forfeit your power. But the man who has severed this invisible chain, who has taken back from the world the authority over his own state of mind, becomes unshakable. He becomes like the mountain that does not bow to the wind, no matter how violently it blows. There is a difference between reaction and response, and the gulf between the two is the gulf between mediocrity and mastery. Reaction is the reflex of the untrained mind, automatic, impulsive, governed by emotion. Response is the conscious choice of the disciplined mind, deliberate, strategic, aligned with a definite purpose. The man who reacts is a slave to his surroundings. The man who responds is a master of them. It is here that I must give you the first principle: definiteness of purpose. Without a definite purpose, detachment is impossible. For if you do not know precisely what you want, you will be swept along by every emotional current, distracted by every glittering object, seduced by every opportunity that promises temporary pleasure but leads you away from your true aim. Purpose is the anchor of the mind. Without it, your thoughts will drift and your emotions will own you. Let us be clear. Definiteness of purpose is not a vague desire for success or happiness. It is a clearly defined objective, measurable and certain, backed by the unwavering decision that you will have it not merely if conditions are favorable, but regardless of conditions. The mind that operates under such a purpose sees every human interaction differently. No longer is the question, do they like me? Or will they give me what I want? The question becomes, what is the next deliberate step toward my definite end? This shift alone transforms your dealings with men from timid petitions to calculated movements in a grand strategy. The second principle is self-discipline. If definiteness of purpose is the compass, self-discipline is the hand that keeps the needle steady. Without discipline, your mind is like a fine racing ship whose rudder is at the mercy of the waves. Emotional discipline is the highest form of self-discipline because it governs the very impulses that dictate your behavior. Consider this: every person you meet is unconsciously evaluating you, not by the words you speak alone, but by the subtle signals of your composure. They measure you by the steadiness of your tone, the pace of your speech, the depth of your gaze. A man in command of himself radiates an aura of inevitability, as if the outcome is already in his favor, as if events are merely unfolding according to a script he has already written. This is not arrogance. It is the natural consequence of knowing that your reactions are under your control, and that no man can pull you from your mental fortress without your consent. When you master this, others feel it instinctively. They sense the weight of your presence. They may not be able to name it, but they will bend to it. They will defer to your pace, adopt your frame of reference, and unconsciously align with your reality. This, my friend, is the unspoken art of getting what you want from anyone you cause them to enter your world rather than competing for space in theirs. But I must give you the third principle, without which the first two collapse: accurate thinking. Detachment and discipline are wasted if they are built upon false premises. Accurate thinking demands that you separate facts from opinions, truth from rumor, cause from effect. The majority of people you will encounter are governed not by truth but by perception, by the echo of ideas they have never examined. If you too operate on such illusions, you will be manipulated as easily as they are. But if you train your mind to demand evidence, to question assumptions, to see things as they are rather than as you wish them to be, you will stand among the rare few who cannot be deceived. Remember this axiom: he who controls the premises controls the conclusion. When you let others define the terms of discussion, you have already surrendered the outcome. But when your thinking is accurate, you have the power to reframe any situation to align with your definite purpose. This is not deception. It is mastery over the lens through which reality is viewed. You will notice as you grow in this practice that emotional detachment gives you a peculiar advantage: time. When others rush to answer, to defend, to justify, you remain silent. You listen. You watch. In the space between stimulus and your chosen response, you see things they cannot, the patterns of their thinking, the hidden motives behind their words, the fears they are trying to conceal. This time, this mental breathing space is where influence is forged. The one who controls the tempo controls the exchange. And here is the cause and effect law that governs this. If you allow emotions to govern your actions, you forfeit your power. But if you command your thoughts, you command your future. This is not a poetic flourish. It is the cold arithmetic of achievement. A single uncontrolled outburst can destroy years of work. A single moment of restraint can secure an empire. To get what you want from anyone, you must be more interested in the outcome than in the impression. You must be willing to walk away from approval if it does not serve your purpose. You must be ready to remain silent when your ego is begging you to speak. You must be prepared to appear unshaken when the world expects you to break. These are the moments that separate those who merely wish for power from those who possess it. The man who has mastered himself cannot be bought with praise nor destroyed by insult. He can be neither seduced by flattery nor provoked by criticism. And because no one can predict his reactions, no one can control him. This unpredictability, when anchored in purpose, makes him formidable. Others must approach him carefully, measure their words, and consider his perspective, because they know he cannot be pushed, he can only be persuaded, and persuasion on his terms is influence at its highest degree. And so I tell you, if you would have the cooperation, the resources, and the allegiance of others, first take from them their only weapon against you, your own uncontrolled emotions. Then replace it with the one thing they cannot resist, the calm certainty of a man who knows where he is going, why he is going there, and that nothing on earth will turn him from his path. The law of mental neutrality is the first of these. Understand this well. The mind in its natural, undisciplined state is biased toward immediate judgment. The untrained mind hears a statement and rushes to agree or to disagree, to take offense or to take pleasure without ever asking, does this serve my definite purpose? The man who has not mastered neutrality is like a gambler who plays every card that touches his hand, quick to act, quick to lose. Neutrality, in the sense that I use the word, does not mean passivity. It is not the absence of opinion, but the suspension of opinion until the facts have been weighed, the motives examined, and the consequences measured. It is the deliberate choice to neither commit nor oppose until your intellect, not your emotion, commands the decision. Why is this essential to getting what you want from anyone? Because the moment you declare your emotional position, you give the other person leverage. If they know what angers you, they can provoke you. If they know what excites you, they can tempt you. But when you maintain neutrality, when your countenance gives no hint of immediate allegiance or rejection, you compel them to reveal themselves more fully. In their eagerness to sway you, they disclose their true desires, their hidden fears, and the limits of their knowledge. A neutral mind listens longer, speaks less, and learns more. And knowledge, in the right hands, is a weapon far deadlier than argument. A man may win a point in debate, but the man who listens until he sees the full shape of his opponent's thoughts wins the war. To practice mental neutrality is to cultivate the habit of being unhurried in judgment. When a proposal is laid before you, hold it in your mind without committing to a stance. Examine it from every angle, not only for its immediate gain, but for its ultimate cost. Ask yourself, if I accept this, how does it serve my definite purpose? If I reject it, what doors will I close? If I remain silent, what further will be revealed. The great Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Deliberation is the father of decision. The undisciplined man decides too soon and regrets too long. The disciplined man delays decision until every relevant truth has come to light, and then he moves with the force of certainty." From the law of neutrality flows the power of calmness. This is no mere temperament. It is an active force, an instrument of influence as precise as the craftsman's chisel. Understand this. Calmness is not the absence of energy, but the mastery of energy. It is the ability to hold the full intensity of your power without letting it spill into disorder. When two men of equal intellect and resources meet in opposition, the one who remains calm will always prevail. The calm mind sees more clearly, calculates more accurately, and communicates with greater authority. Calmness slows the tempo of interaction, forcing others to adjust to your pace. When you control the pace, you control the frame. When you control the frame, you control the outcome. You will find as you cultivate calmness that it has a peculiar effect on others. It unnerves them. In an age where men are addicted to urgency, the one who remains composed appears to possess a secret advantage. Others wonder, why is he not worried? What does he know that I do not? This uncertainty causes them to overextend themselves, to reveal information they would otherwise guard, and to make concessions in an attempt to draw you out. There is a profound truth in this. Silence and stillness are often more persuasive than argument. The merchant who fills the air with words betrays his need. The buyer who listens in silence controls the price. The leader who speaks only when necessary has followers who hang on his every word. The negotiator who remains calm in the face of provocation dictates the terms without ever raising his voice. But calmness cannot be an act. It must be genuine. You cannot feign it under pressure unless you have first mastered your inner world. This mastery is achieved through the principle of thought first, the unbreakable rule that nothing is spoken, nothing is acted upon, until it has been processed, weighed, and aligned with your definite purpose. Every rash word, every impulsive action, every ill-considered concession begins as an unfiltered thought. The mind, like a gate, must have a keeper. That keeper is your deliberate awareness, trained to ask, before thought becomes action, does this serve my purpose, or is it merely the urge of the moment? The masses live in reverse. They speak first, act second, and think last. And because their thinking comes too late, it comes in the form of regret. The man of mastery reverses the order. He thinks first, then acts, then speaks, if speaking serves the action. Such a man rarely apologizes, for he rarely acts against himself. The principle of thought first protects you from being baited into emotional traps. There will be those who, intentionally or not, will seek to provoke you through insult, through flattery, through false urgency. If you allow them to dictate the pace of your response, you surrender the advantage. But when you pause, when you make it clear by your very presence that no force outside your mind can command your reaction, you shift the balance of power. And here is the cause and effect truth of this principle. The man who speaks from impulse serves the design of others. The man who speaks from deliberate thought compels others to serve his design. As you apply these principles, mental neutrality, calmness, and thought, first you will find a strange thing happening. People will begin to seek your approval, to court your favor, to adjust themselves to you. They will feel, perhaps without understanding why, that you are a fixed point in a chaotic world, and that alignment with you is to their advantage. This is the silent magnetism of mastery. It is not achieved by force, but by the absence of weakness. It is not won by demanding respect, but by being unshakable in the face of all that would make lesser men tremble. And I tell you now, if you would get what you want from anyone, begin here. Take hold of your mind as a general takes hold of his army. Train it, discipline it, command it without compromise. For once your inner world is yours alone, the outer world will yield to it. The strategic use of silence is a weapon so rarely mastered that most who hear of it dismiss it as too simple to be powerful. They are wrong. Silence, when wielded by a mind of discipline and purpose, is among the most decisive forces in human interaction. The ordinary man speaks to fill the air, to prove his knowledge, to ease his own discomfort. The master understands that the man who controls the air controls the outcome. Silence has a dual power. First, it compels others to reveal themselves. Man is a creature impatient with the void. When silence falls, the untrained mind rushes to fill it, often with information that should have been guarded, often with concessions that were not yet demanded. Second, silence creates the perception of weight and thoughtfulness. When you remain quiet while others clamor, they assume you are calculating, judging, or seeing what they cannot. This alone shifts the balance of negotiation. In your dealings with men, cultivate the habit of speaking less than you know. Let the other man explain himself fully. Let him outline his desires, his fears, his motives before you reveal your own position. In this way, you draw from him the map of his mind before you commit a single step in yours. The great advantage here is that silence cannot be attacked. Words may be twisted, arguments countered, positions undermined, but silence is impregnable. Your adversary cannot refute what you have not said, nor can he predict the course you will take if you have given him no trail to follow. In silence, you retain the element of surprise, and in any contest, surprise is the force multiplier. The man who reveals himself too early forfeits his ability to maneuver. The man who speaks only when the field is fully visible to him is always moving from a position of advantage. But silence must not be confused with absence. This brings us to the principle of controlled presence. To get what you want from anyone, you must master not only what you say and when you say it, but how you exist in the space between words. Controlled presence is the art of influencing without overt display. It is the balance between being seen enough to be considered, but not so much as to become predictable. You do not throw yourself into every scene. You appear when your appearance matters, and you withdraw when your absence will cause them to feel your value more acutely. Consider the rhythm of a master strategist. He does not engage in every skirmish. He chooses the battles that matter and wins them decisively. In human affairs, your presence should be the same. If you are constantly available, your presence loses weight. If you are rare but decisive, each appearance becomes an event. Others will watch for your reactions, measure themselves by your responses, and adjust their behavior in anticipation of your approval or disapproval. Controlled presence is built on two forces, timing and restraint. Timing ensures you arrive at the moment of maximum impact. Restraint ensures you do not squander your influence by overexposure. When you do speak, when you do act, it should be as though the air itself has shifted. Those in your presence should feel they have been brought into alignment with something deliberate, something inevitable. Now we come to the discipline of withdrawing emotion before decision. This is where the true battle is fought not against others, but within your own mind. The average man decides while under the influence of emotional tension, excitement, fear, anger, urgency. In these states, the mind is not free. It is shackled to the chemical storm within the body. And as long as the body commands the mind, the man is a servant, not a master. To withdraw emotion before decision is to delay action until the heat has cooled and clarity has returned. This is not hesitation. It is preparation. The general does not send his army into battle in the dark. He waits for daylight, for the ground to be surveyed, for the enemy's position to be understood. Likewise, you must never decide in the shadows of emotional upheaval. The moment you feel urgency pressing against your mind, step back. The moment you feel the sting of insult or the rush of desire, step back. Put distance between stimulus and decision until you can see the matter from the high ground of reason. From that vantage, you will see options invisible to the man who charges blindly forward. Those who master this discipline become feared in negotiation, respected in leadership, and unshakable in crisis. Why? Because they are immune to the most common weapons used against men, provocation and temptation. When neither insult nor flattery can move you, when neither urgency nor allure can bend your will, you stand as an immovable force in the affairs of men. And those who cannot move you must move around you, accommodating your terms, whether they know it or not. And so the chain is forged. Silence gives you the space to read the field. Controlled presence ensures you appear at the moment of greatest influence. The withdrawal of emotion before decision ensures that when you act from the seat of power, not from the stirrings of impulse. Here lies the truth few will admit. Most of the victories attributed to charisma or genius are nothing more than the result of discipline applied in these quiet, invisible ways. The world is moved not by the loudest voice, but by the steadiest hand. Now we turn to an even sharper instrument, one I call the economy of words, and from there we will proceed into the law of psychological gravity and the subtle art of suggestion without asking. These principles will carry us further into the realm where the mind itself becomes the only currency you need to get what you want from anyone. The economy of words is a law as binding in the realm of influence as gravity is in the physical world. The weak man believes persuasion is achieved through abundance of speech, by flooding the listener with arguments, explanations, and reassurances. The master knows the opposite is true. The more valuable the coin, the fewer you need to spend. Words, like currency, lose value through overuse. When every sentence is deliberate, measured, and necessary, it carries the weight of law. In every human exchange, there is a silent negotiation of authority. The one who feels compelled to speak more is seeking to prove himself. The one who speaks less is assumed to already possess authority. The man of mastery does not seek validation through words. His presence, his composure, his certainty speak for him before his mouth opens. The economy of words forces the listener to assign meaning to each statement you make. When you choose your words as a jeweler selects stones, you eliminate the superfluous and leave only the flawless. Each sentence becomes an instrument, cutting directly to the point. This discipline does not merely conserve energy, it magnifies it. A few words from the disciplined mind can shake a man more than hours of speech from the undisciplined. You will see this principle most vividly in high-stakes negotiation. The novice argues his position as though volume and repetition will create conviction. The master states his position once, clearly, with precision, and then waits. The silence that follows forces the other party to grapple with the statement, to test it in their own mind, and in doing so, they become engaged in the mental labor of persuading themselves. This leads naturally to the law of psychological gravity. Every mind exerts a pull on the minds around it. The strength of that pull depends on the density of conviction within the mind. A scattered, conflicted, or emotionally reactive mind has no gravity. Its influence is weak, and it must constantly chase the attention and favor of others. A focused, disciplined, and self-contained mind develops immense gravity. People feel drawn to it without knowing why. Your gravity increases with every act of self-mastery. Each time you refuse to be provoked, you add weight. Each time you hold silence instead of rushing to speak, you add weight. Each time you act with deliberate thought rather than impulse, you add weight. Over time, your presence begins to bend the space around you. Others feel it. They find themselves adjusting their pace, their tone, their behavior to match yours. This is no accident. It is the invisible influence of psychological gravity. When your mind is fixed with certainty upon a definite purpose, when your demeanor reflects that nothing external can disturb your inner command, others experience a subtle shift in orientation. They begin to move around you as though you are the fixed point and they are in orbit. Once you possess gravity, you no longer chase, you attract. You no longer plead, you position. The pull of your certainty is stronger than any push of argument. People will give, agree, concede, and align, often without fully understanding why, because the human mind is wired to follow stability. The storm seeks the mountain, the uncertain seek the certain. Now we enter the most refined instrument of all, the subtle art of suggestion without asking. This is the ability to direct another's thoughts and decisions so that they feel the choice was entirely their own. The amateur asks directly, hoping for compliance. The master plants the seed so skillfully that the other man waters it himself, believing it was his seed all along. This art begins with observation. You must understand the other's values, fears, desires, and self-image better than they do. You then shape your statements and questions in such a way that the path you wish them to take appears to be the most natural expression of who they already believe themselves to be. For example, if you want a man to take a particular course of action, do not tell him what to do. Instead, speak to the principles he prides himself on: his sense of honor, his desire for efficiency, his wish to be seen as decisive. Frame your observations so that the action you desire aligns perfectly with these traits. He will take the step, not because you asked, but because in his mind it confirms the identity he values. In this way, you sidestep resistance entirely. Resistance arises when a man feels he is being directed. Suggestion works because he believes he is acting of his own accord. This is why suggestion without asking is infinitely more powerful than command. It allows the other to preserve his pride while serving your purpose. When combined with psychological gravity, controlled presence, and the economy of words, suggestion without asking becomes nearly irresistible. People will act in ways that serve your definite purpose, not because you force them, but because your influence has shaped the mental environment in which their decisions are made. This is the height of mastery, to cause men to move in your favor without ever appearing to push them. Here, you no longer rely on direct confrontation. You work through alignment, through framing, through the invisible levers of thought and identity. And from this point, we can progress to the next set of governing laws: the command of emotional contrast, the art of reversing pressure, and the doctrine of the last word without speaking it. These will take us further into the realm where persuasion becomes not a contest of will, but the natural consequence of superior mental architecture. The command of emotional contrast is one of the most decisive instruments in shaping human behavior, yet few understand it because they themselves are slaves to its effects. Emotional contrast is the deliberate use of changes in tone, intensity, and presence to create impact. The average man lives at the mercy of his own emotional fluctuations, high when events favor him, low when they do not, and because his changes are involuntary, they hold no power. The master uses contrast intentionally, as the painter uses light and shadow to give depth and dimension to his art. When you remain steady and calm for long periods, a sudden increase in intensity, a sharper gaze, a lean forward, a firm change in tone strikes like a hammer. It penetrates where constant force would only dull the senses. Likewise, when you maintain intensity and then suddenly withdraw into a pause, the silence becomes deafening. The other person leans in, physically or mentally, to fill it. This principle works because the human mind measures value by change. The man who is always calm is seen as passive. The man who is always intense is seen as desperate. But the man who controls both states and moves between them deliberately becomes unpredictable, magnetic, and compelling. In influence, the contrast is the emphasis. Without it, your impact fades into the background noise of their habitual thinking. Closely tied to contrast is the art of reversing pressure. Most negotiations, arguments, and requests fail because the one making them pushes too hard, too directly, creating resistance. Human nature is such that we resist being told what to do. The harder we are pushed, the stronger we push back. The master does not meet resistance with more pressure. He reverses it. Reversing pressure means stepping back when others expect you to push. It means removing urgency when they anticipate demand. This shift creates confusion in the opponent's defense. They prepared for an attack, not for the sudden vacuum of it. In that vacuum, they feel the weight of their own position. They begin to justify themselves, to overexplore their reasoning, to make concessions preemptively in order to regain balance. You can see this most clearly when someone expects you to argue and you instead agree with part of their position, or when they expect you to insist and you instead say, "Perhaps it is not the right time. We can revisit this later." This deflates their emotional posture, drops their guard, and often draws them toward your position voluntarily, simply because you removed the push that kept them anchored to the opposite side. Reversing pressure requires discipline, for it goes against the instinct to assert control directly. But it works because it transforms the interaction from a contest into a self-persuasion process for the other party. When they are no longer resisting you, they begin to align with you. From here, we move to one of the most advanced tools in human influence, the doctrine of the last word without speaking it. This is the practice of ending interactions in such a way that the final thought, the final weight, remains in your favor even if the last literal word was not yours. The undisciplined seek to win the last word, to have their statement linger in the air as the definitive close. The master understands that the last word is not the last sound, but the last impression. You can allow another to speak last in a literal sense while ensuring that their words are hollow against the gravity of the frame you have already set. How is this done? By establishing your frame early, reinforcing it subtly throughout, and then withdrawing without closing the circle entirely. You leave a question unanswered, a possibility open, a thought incomplete, something that compels the other mind to keep working on your terms even after the exchange ends. In this way, you control the mental aftertaste of the interaction. Hours later, even days later, they are still turning over what you implied, still considering what you left unsaid, still evaluating themselves by the standard you set. This is influence that extends beyond the moment, quietly shaping future behavior, without the need for repeated assertion. By combining emotional contrast, reversed pressure, and the unspoken last word, you move beyond persuasion as a contest and into persuasion as inevitability. You cease to fight for agreement. You cause it to grow in the other's mind until they believe it was their own all along. From here, the next stage is the discipline of the invisible win, the principle of deferred gratification in influence, and the architecture of unassailable position, each of which transforms your mastery from momentary victories into lasting, compounding power. The discipline of the invisible win is a principle only the highest minds in influence ever learn, for it demands a complete renunciation of the shallow desire for immediate recognition. The average man seeks visible victories, applause, acknowledgement, the satisfaction of being declared right in the eyes of others. But such victories are brittle. They feed the ego but starve the strategy. The invisible win, by contrast, is a result achieved without drawing attention to the fact that it was your will that caused it. An invisible win might be a shift in someone's thinking that unfolds over weeks, a decision they believe they made entirely on their own, an alignment of events that benefits you without your hand ever appearing to touch them. The discipline here is to restrain the impulse to claim credit, to let others keep their illusions while you keep the result. Why is this so powerful? Because it leaves no resistance in its wake. When you claim a visible victory, the other party knows they have been influenced and may resist you in the future. When you win invisibly, their pride remains intact, and they will often seek you out again, unaware that they are placing themselves repeatedly within your sphere of influence. The invisible win compounds over time. Each unclaimed victory becomes a thread in a web of quiet power, binding people to you without their conscious awareness. They trust you more, consult you more, follow your suggestions more readily, because they believe they are acting from their own free will. This, my friend, is influence at its purest. From here, we step into the principle of deferred gratification in influence. The impatient man tries to force the outcome now. He pushes, he insists, he seeks to close the deal, secure the commitment, win the favor, and in his haste he often pays too much or reveals too much. The master knows that influence is like planting. The seed must be sown, the ground prepared, the conditions cultivated, and only then, in its own season, will the harvest come. Deferred gratification in influence means you are willing to walk away from a partial victory today in order to secure a complete and enduring victory tomorrow. It means that you are not seduced by the bait of short-term gain at the expense of long-term position. There will be moments when you could press harder, when you could win the point now, but at the cost of trust, rapport, or the illusion of autonomy in the other. In those moments, you must step back and let time do the work. Let them believe the decision was theirs. Let them carry your idea into their own mind until it becomes part of their thinking. When they return to you ready to move, you will have the victory and the loyalty. This principle demands patience, but it gives you something far greater than immediate wins. It gives you the ability to shape the long game. And in the long game, the one who can wait longest and move last holds the greatest advantage. Which brings us to the architecture of unassailable position. This is the ultimate state in influence, to arrange matters so that no matter how events unfold, your position remains secure and your leverage intact. An unassailable position is built by combining several elements. Independence of need. You never become so dependent on another person's decision that their refusal can harm you. Multiple lines of leverage. You cultivate several paths to your objective so that if one is blocked, another remains open. Reputation for strength and fairness. Others know you cannot be easily moved, but also that you deal justly. This prevents unnecessary opposition. Control of information. You manage what is known about your intentions and capabilities so that others cannot fully map your position. When you hold an unassailable position, you are never at the mercy of the other's will. You can afford to wait, to negotiate from a place of calm certainty, because you know that the structure you have built cannot be dismantled by a single refusal or betrayal. And here is the law that binds all these together. The man who depends on chance must hurry. The man who depends on position can afford to wait. Most lose in negotiation not because they are out-argued, but because they are out-positioned before the argument even begins. With the invisible win, deferred gratification, and unassailable position, you are no longer merely persuasive, you are inevitable. Your influence is no longer an act performed in moments. It becomes a constant, ambient force in your environment. From here, we move into the law of framing reality, the subconscious pull of status, and the principle of self-containment as magnetism, each of which will extend your mastery from individual interactions to the shaping of entire environments in which your will operates without resistance. The law of framing reality rests on a single truth. Human beings do not respond to reality itself, they respond to their perception of reality. Whoever defines the frame through which events, offers, and relationships are viewed controls the meaning assigned to them, and whoever controls meaning controls action. Framing is the subtle, invisible process of establishing what something is before the other person has a chance to decide for themselves. If you frame an opportunity as rare, they will value it more. If you frame an action as consistent with their principles, they will defend it as their own. If you frame a delay as preparation for something greater, they will wait without resentment. The weak man enters an interaction inside the other's frame, answering their questions, accepting their definitions, defending himself against their terms. The master immediately establishes his own frame, often without announcing it. He speaks from the position of one whose perspective is already the standard. He does not try to win the frame, he simply acts as if it were already the accepted reality, and by doing so, causes others to unconsciously adopt it. From framing, we move to the subconscious pull of status. Every human being is tuned, consciously or not, to the hierarchy of their environment. They notice who commands respect, who sets the pace, who must adapt, and who can remain unmoved. Status is not loud. In fact, it is diminished by trying to prove it. It is reinforced by behavior that says, I do not need to win your approval, for my value is already established. In practical terms, the subconscious pull of status means that when you carry yourself with the calm assurance of one who belongs at the top of the order, others will often defer without realizing why. They sense that your energy does not reach upward seeking permission, it radiates outward, expecting alignment. This is why the master of influence avoids actions that signal neediness, excessive explaining, or chasing. Each of these communicates that your value is dependent on the other, and once you broadcast dependence, your status and your pull diminishes. This leads us to the principle of self-containment as magnetism. Self-containment is the disciplined refusal to leak your energy, emotions, and intentions unnecessarily. It is the opposite of overexposure. When you are self-contained, you reveal only what is useful, speak only when needed, and keep the core of your plans and desires shielded from the unpredictable currents of others' influence. Magnetism emerges because human nature is drawn to mystery. The self-contained man invites curiosity. Others want to know what he is thinking, what he intends, what he may do next. But because he does not feed that curiosity with constant disclosure, they remain engaged, leaning toward him, giving more of their attention, and seeking his presence more often. When self-containment is combined with framing and status, you become the center of gravity in any environment. The frame is yours, the hierarchy adjusts around you, and your silence holds more influence than another man's speech. Now, as we approach the close, all these principles converge. Emotional detachment ensures you are never moved against your will. Mental discipline keeps your actions aligned with a definite purpose. The strategic tools silence, controlled presence, invisible wins, deferred gratification, unassailable position ensure you are never cornered, never hurried, never reactive. Framing, status, and self-containment ensure that others are drawn into your orbit, adapting themselves to you rather than the reverse. And here at the summit of all this is the ultimate truth. The one who masters himself will, in time, master the terms upon which he deals with others. To get what you want from anyone is not to trick them, nor to overpower them, but but to become the kind of person whose clarity, control, and certainty make alignment with you the most natural and advantageous choice they can make. You are not chasing agreement. You are building a reality in which your purpose is the central, stabilizing force. You will find, when you live this way, that the world begins to rearrange itself in your favor. Opportunities present themselves without your pursuit. People offer resources before you ask. Doors open not because you demanded them to, but because your presence made it inevitable. And so I leave you with this, not as inspiration, but as instruction. Guard your emotions as you would guard your wealth. Discipline your mind as a general disciplines his army. Speak with precision. Act with purpose. Wait with patience. Position yourself so that no man's refusal can destroy you. Let your presence carry the weight of your certainty, and let your certainty become the law of your world. Do this, and you will no longer ask, how do I get what I want from anyone? You will instead live in such a way that the question becomes irrelevant, for the current of life itself will carry you toward it, and those you meet will become not obstacles, but instruments of the destiny you have already claimed. Remember this above all else, you cannot command the minds of others until you have conquered your own. The man who cannot rule his temper will be ruled by those who can provoke it. The man who cannot govern his desires will be governed by those who can tempt them. The man who cannot still his fears will be steered by those who can stir them. But the man who is unprovoked, untempted, and unshaken is beyond the reach of all lesser forces. He becomes the rarest of all beings, one who moves not with the tides of circumstance, but with the deliberate course of his own will. His presence is not an argument, it is a verdict. His words are not requests, they are laws in the minds of those who hear them. His life is not a gamble, it is an execution of a plan so certain that the world itself bends to accommodate it. And if you would be such a man, if you would stand where no insult can diminish you, no flattery can seduce you, no urgency can shake you, then begin now, this very moment, to take back the seat of power in your own mind. Speak less, think more, act with purpose. Let every choice you make serve your definite aim, and let no aim be so small that it does not command your full allegiance. For when you have mastered yourself to this degree, you will no longer be at the mercy of chance, of men, or of time. You will carry with you the silent authority of one who does not ask, he receives. You will need no tricks, no force, no deceit. The world will give to you not because you demand it, but because it cannot help itself. And then you will understand the final secret. You do not get what you want from anyone by taking it. You get it by becoming the kind of man from whom it is never withheld.